Think back to a single summer when you were a kid. One summer. It went on forever. The mornings were long, the afternoons were longer. September felt like it lived in another country. Now, think about last year. The whole year, 12 months. It's already gone, and you're not sure where. Same length, same 365 days. One crawled, one vanished. Here's the part that should bother you. It's not your memory playing tricks. Time really is speeding up, measurably, predictably, on a schedule, and it has been since you were about 8 years old. Right now, as you watch this, it is accelerating. There are 4 reasons this happens. They stack on top of each other, and each one is worse than the last. But there's also a 5th thing, a way to slow it back down, maybe even reverse it. That part is real, and I'll show you exactly how at the end. Stick around because this is the one video where the ending actually changes your life. Let's start with the math, because the math is brutal. Almost 150 years ago, a French philosopher named Paul Janet noticed something so simple it's almost stupid, and then it ruins your whole week once you see it. When you are 1 year old, a single year is your entire life. It is 100% of everything you have ever experienced. When you're 5, 1 year is a fifth of your life, 20%. Enormous. That's why a summer at 5 feels endless. It genuinely is a huge fraction of everything you've ever known. Now run the same math forward. At 10, a year is 10% of your life. At 20, 5%. At 40, 2.5%. At 50, just 2%. The year didn't get shorter, your life got longer, so each new year is a thinner and thinner slice of the whole thing. Your brain doesn't measure time with a stopwatch. It measures time against everything else you've lived, and against a long life, 1 year barely registers. It's like dropping a cup of water into a bath versus dropping it into the ocean. Same cup, completely different splash. Here is the number that genuinely disturbs people. If you measure your life not in years, but in how long each year feels in perceived time, then the halfway point of your entire life isn't at 40. It lands somewhere around your early 20s. By the time you are a young adult in the currency that actually matters, the felt currency, you may have already lived half your life. The second half just gets crammed into a smaller and smaller box. But the math is only the first layer, because the math doesn't explain everything, and the next reason is happening inside your head right now. Try this. Think about your first day at a new school, your first kiss, the first time you drove a car alone, the first time you saw the ocean. You can probably picture these in detail, the light, the smell, the feeling in your stomach. Now try to remember last Tuesday. Not a special Tuesday, just last Tuesday. You almost certainly can't, and that gap is the second reason time is disappearing. Your brain does not store time evenly, it stores novelty. When something is new, your brain flags it as important and records it in high definition, every detail richly encoded. When something is familiar, your brain does the opposite. It stops paying attention, it runs on autopilot and barely records anything at all. Why waste storage on the 400th identical commute? When you were a child, almost everything was new. Every day produced dozens of first-time memories, so when you look back, that period feels packed, stuffed with vivid moments, and a packed stretch of time feels long in hindsight. Now look at your adult life. Same job, same route, same faces, same Tuesday over and over. Your brain encodes almost none of it, so when you look back at the whole year, there's barely anything there, and a stretch of time with few memories in it feels short. It feels like it evaporated, because to your brain, it basically did. You were alive for all of it, you just didn't record most of it. This is the cruel trick. The more routine your life becomes, the less of it your brain bothers to save, and the faster it seems to vanish when you look back. Comfort and routine are quietly eating your years. And it gets more physical than that, because the actual machinery is slowing down too. There's a real clock inside your brain, and it runs on a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is partly how your brain keeps time. It sets the tempo, the internal beat that tells you how fast the world is moving. As you age, your dopamine levels gradually drop, and when that internal beat slows down, something strange happens to your sense of time. Your inner clock ticks fewer times per minute, so when you compare it to the real world seems to be racing past you. Think of it like frame rate on a camera. A child's brain captures the world at a high frame rate, tons of mental snapshots per second, the way a slow-motion camera captures hundreds of frames to stretch 1 second into a long, detailed moment. That's why in an emergency, when adrenaline spikes your processing, time seems to slow to a crawl. You're recording more frames, so the moment feels longer. An older brain captures fewer frames per second. Less gets sampled, so the same real minute contains fewer mental moments, and a minute with fewer moments in it feels like it's flying by. Your hardware is literally running at a lower frame rate than it used to. There's even a theory from event perception research, the idea that your brain chops your life into discrete events, little scenes with a beginning and an end. Younger brains flip between these scenes constantly, marking boundary after boundary. More chapters makes a stretch of time feel full and long. As you age, you flip less, fewer chapters. The book of your year gets thinner even though the same amount of life went into it. So now you've got three forces working against you at once. The math is shrinking every year, your brain is recording less of it, and your internal clock is ticking slower. And there is a fourth one, and it's the one almost nobody talks about, because it's the one we did to ourselves. Here's the uncomfortable one. The first three reasons are biology: proportion, memory, dopamine. You didn't choose them. But the fourth reason is a trap you walked into on your own, a little more every year. As you get older, you build a life of efficiency. Same alarm, same coffee, same drive, same desk, same scroll, same dinner, same show, same bed. You optimized your life to remove friction, and friction is exactly what your brain was using to mark time. Every routine you lock in is a stretch of life your brain has been told to ignore. A week of pure routine can collapse in memory into almost nothing, a single gray smear. String 52 of those weeks together and you get a year that, looking back, felt like it lasted a long weekend. And modern life makes this worse than it ever has been, screens especially. Hours can disappear into a phone with almost zero distinct memory left behind. No landmarks, no novelty, nothing for your brain to anchor to. It is the single most time-compressing activity ever invented. You don't lose minutes to it, you lose whole evenings that leave no trace. This is why the years feel like they're collapsing on top of each other as you get older. It isn't only that time is speeding up, it's that you slowly stopped giving your brain anything worth remembering. You traded novelty for comfort, and comfort, it turns out, is invisible to memory. Which finally brings us to the thing I promised at the start, because if routine is what's stealing your time, then novelty is how you steal it back, and this part actually works. Researchers have a name for the fix. They call them temporal landmarks, small disruptions to your routine that give your brain something distinct to record. And the science here is hopeful because the same mechanism that's compressing your time can be run in reverse. You can't change the math of proportion. You can't refill your dopamine levels to childhood levels, but you have direct, total control over the two biggest levers, novelty and memory, and those are the ones doing most of the damage. The principle is simple. New experiences create dense memories, and dense memories make time feel long in hindsight. So you flood your life with newness on purpose. Take a different route home. Your brain wakes up the moment the scenery is unfamiliar. Learn something hard enough to be uncomfortable. Go somewhere you've never been, even if it's one town over. Meet people outside your usual circle. Say yes to the thing that breaks the pattern. This is why a single week of travel can feel longer than the 2 months of routine before it. You came back saying, "I can't believe that was only 7 days." That's not a feeling. That's your brain finally recording again, stuffing a week so full of landmarks that it's stretched. And there's a second lever. Attention. Routine runs on autopilot, and autopilot doesn't record. So break the autopilot. Actually taste the coffee. Notice the drive. Put the phone down and let a plain evening leave a mark. The people who report that their lives feel rich and long aren't living longer. They're living awake. They're handing their brain more to remember. You cannot add years to the back end of your life on command, but you can make the years you have left feel dramatically longer by refusing to let them blur. Time isn't speeding up because the universe sped up. It's speeding up because you stopped paying attention. And that, unlike your age, is entirely yours to change. So go back to that endless childhood summer one more time.
It didn't feel long because you were young, it felt long because everything in it was new, and you were awake for all of it, and your brain wrote down every single day. You can't be 8 again, but you can do the one thing 8-year-old you did automatically. Meet the world like you haven't seen it before. Every novel thing you do, every routine you break, every moment you actually pay attention to is a day your brain decides to keep. The years are going to keep getting mathematically thinner. That part is fixed. But how full they feel, how long they last when you look back, how much of your one life you actually get to remember living, that was never set by your age. It's set by how much of it you bother to notice. The clock is ticking either way. The only question is whether you're awake enough to feel it pass. So the next time a year vanishes and you wonder where it went, you already know. It didn't go anywhere. You just weren't there for it.